You ever notice how we live, wrapped in comfort, heated homes, thick blankets, fuzzy socks, and still complain that it's cold? Yet 600 years ago, out on the open prairie, a Native American elder was sleeping through blizzards with nothing but hides, fire, and wisdom. No thermostat, no brick walls, just the earth, the wind, and a way of living so in tune with nature that even the fiercest winter couldn't break them. Those people didn't fear the cold the way we do today. They faced it, learned from it, and turned it into a rhythm of survival. Every gust of wind, every layer of snow carried a lesson. They didn't just endure, they thrived, and the shelters they built, what we'd call fragile, were actually masterpieces of physics, community, and instinct. So here's the question that keeps echoing through time. How did they pull that off? How did families, elders, and children sleep soundly through storms that would send most of us running for a hotel with central heating? This story isn't about nostalgia or romanticizing the past. It's about rediscovering the intelligence woven into ancient life. 7 survival secrets, so clever they still challenge everything we think we know about comfort, warmth, and resilience. By the end, you might start to wonder if maybe we're not the evolved ones after all, but the softened ones. When a winter storm rolled across the Great Plains, survival began long before the first snowflake hit the ground. It started with one simple but crucial question: where do we set the teepee? For the Native American families who moved with the seasons, the answer was never random. It was written in the language of the land itself, a language they could read at a glance. They knew the open prairie looked beautiful under the sun, but when the wind came slicing across it, it turned deadly fast. That's why the first rule of winter survival was simple: never camp in the open. Instead, they looked for protection in the arms of the landscape. A line of trees could become a fortress, breaking the wind and raising the inside temperature by just a few precious degrees, enough to mean the difference between a good night's sleep and frostbite. Cliffs and rock faces worked like nature's radiators, soaking in sunlight during the day and releasing it slowly through the night. Families who set up their shelters close to those warm stones could feel that gentle heat drift through the hides as the world outside froze solid. They even understood the hidden dangers of the land. Valleys, while calm, could trap cold air like water in a bowl, turning stillness into a deep freeze. So they searched for high but sheltered spots, near fallen wood and brush they could burn when storms raged. Some families even built low fences of branches around their camps, 3 to 5 meters high, to block the worst winds. To them, choosing a campsite wasn't just about comfort, it was life or death. Every gust, every shadow, every curve of the earth whispered a clue, and if you could read it, you could survive the storm. Now that the right spot was chosen, the real art of survival began: the building of the teepee. From a distance, it looked simple, a cone of poles wrapped in buffalo hides standing alone against a frozen horizon. But up close, it was a masterpiece of design, a structure born from centuries of observation and trial. Every angle, every layer, every opening served a purpose. The teepee wasn't just a tent, it was a living system that breathed with the weather. At the heart of that system was the fire, not a roaring blaze, but a small, steady flame nestled in a shallow pit about 6 inches deep. That depth wasn't random, it allowed the fire's warmth to rise and circulate instead of staying trapped at the ground. The teepee walls, lined with hides, created a vertical tunnel where warm air climbed upward while cold air slipped in low through small vents near the base. Above, adjustable smoke flaps opened and closed like the lungs of the structure, directing the smoke away while keeping the warmth in. It was primitive, yet it mirrored the principles of modern HVAC: heat rising, airflow circulating, oxygen feeding the flame. Families managed this delicate balance with constant care. One adult always stayed awake as the fire tender, adjusting wood, watching the embers, making sure the air flowed just right. Too much flame, and the hides might scorch. Too little, and frost would creep across the sleeping floor. Some tribes even lined the inside of their teepees with an extra hide layer during winter, trapping warm air between walls like insulation in a modern home. It was a system powered by instinct, not technology, by human rhythm, not electricity. And through the long, howling nights, that soft orange glow in the center of the teepee wasn't just heat. It was heartbeat, light, and life itself, pulsing quietly against the dark winter outside. Even with the fire burning steadily, the cold had another trick. It crept up from beneath. The frozen ground could drain the heat out of a body faster than the air ever could. The native families knew this well, and they didn't simply sleep on the earth. They engineered it. Their warmth began from the ground up. First came the foundation. Thick, tightly woven willow mats laid directly on the soil. These mats acted like nature's carpet, trapping thin layers of air being one of the best insulators. On top of that, they spread dry grasses in overlapping layers, forming a springy cushion that stopped the frost from seeping through. Then came the hides: buffalo, elk, or deer fur side up, leather side down. The soft fur captured body heat, while the tough leather blocked drafts from sneaking in. It wasn't just bedding. It was a layered thermal system, designed by instinct and necessity. And when the temperature plunged to its cruelest lows, they added a secret weapon: hot stones. Smooth river rocks were heated in the fire, then wrapped in hides and slid beneath the sleeping area. Those stones released warmth slowly through the night, turning the ground into a gentle heater. Some families even packed the earth beneath into a firm surface during the day so it could hold and release the sun's heat at night. Primitive memory foam, long before the term existed. Imagine it, a family curled together, children nestled against warm hides, the faint scent of grass and smoke in the air. Outside, snow piled against the teepee walls, but inside, it was calm, steady, almost sacred. Their comfort didn't come from luxury, it came from understanding the land and shaping it into shelter. But warmth didn't only come from fire or stone. It came from people. The human body was the first and last source of heat, and the native families knew how to use it wisely. When night fell and the wind howled through the plains, they didn't spread out the way we do today. They gathered close, turning sleep itself into a survival strategy. Picture it, the fire glowing softly in the center, children nestled in the warmest spot near the flame, elders beside them, and parents forming a protective circle around. Every layer of the family acted like a living wall, trapping heat in the middle. It wasn't random, it was geometry for survival. The more bodies packed together, the less heat escaped. Even without knowing the science, they understood the principle that nature's toughest creatures, like penguins in Antarctica, still follow today. Their bedding mirrored this logic. Closest to the skin were soft hides that wicked away moisture. Over that, thick furs created a thermal barrier, and the outer hides shielded against cold drafts. But they didn't stop there. Extremities got special attention: hands tucked under arms, feet drawn up close, children wrapped like little cocoons in buffalo hides. The elders, their bodies slower to produce heat, were given extra layers and sometimes even a warmed stone near their backs. And before crawling under those hides, they always warmed up their bodies with gentle movement, just enough to stir the blood, never enough to sweat. Because in this world, moisture was the enemy. A damp hide could turn comfort into danger. In the heart of the storm, surrounded by snow and silence, the family's warmth came not just from heat, but from connection, from the simple act of staying close, alive together against the cold. Even with the fire burning, the stones glowing, and the family huddled close, there were nights when the cold clawed through every layer. That's when survival demanded something raw, something that tested both courage and instinct. The people turned to nature's most unexpected shield animal: fat and ash. To us, it might sound strange or even unpleasant, but to them, it was armor. Buffalo tallow was their go-to weapon against the bitter wind. Thick, heavy, and slow to melt, it worked like a natural waterproof coat. When rubbed onto the skin, it sealed in warmth, trapping a thin layer of air close to the body and blocking icy gusts from cutting through. For harsher conditions, Bear fat was used richer and longer lasting, perfect for long nights when the cold never seemed to stop. Deer fat, softer and lighter, was used for children, offering protection without irritating their tender skin. Every family knew which kind to use, the same way we know which jacket to grab before stepping outside. Then came the ash. Mixed with fat, it turned into a dark paste, the earliest kind of survival skincare. The fine carbon particles absorbed and held the heat from the fire, forming a thin, heat-retaining layer over the skin. They smeared it across faces, around wrists and ankles, and over pulse points where the blood ran close to the surface. These spots acted like natural heaters, keeping circulation alive even in sub-zero winds. It wasn't vanity. It wasn't ritual. It was science born from observation, tested by generations. A father might coat his child's cheeks in that grey mixture as snow hammered the teepee walls, not for beauty, but for life. Because sometimes the difference between a healthy morning and a frozen one was just a handful of fat and ash. But winter didn't only bring cold, it brought hunger. And not just for people. Out there, beyond the soft glow of the teepee fire, eyes glimmered in the dark. Wolves, mountain lions, and bears prowled through the snow, drawn by the scent of food and smoke. For the native families, survival meant preparing not only for frostbite, but for fangs and claws. Their teepee wasn't just a shelter, it was a fortress built from instinct and courage. The first line of defense came on 4 legs. Their dogs weren't pets. They were guardians, loyal, sharp, and trained by generations. These animals could tell the difference between the whisper of a drifting branch and the stealthy tread of a predator. When danger lurked, their growls rose low and deep, the kind that made every adult stir instantly awake. Inside the teepee, weapons were never stored away in some corner. Spears, bows, and knives were placed within arm's reach, ready to grab even in total darkness. Parents could rise, roll, and have a weapon in hand before the entrance flap even moved. Outside, the very landscape was part of their defense plan. Families piled snow around their shelters in deliberate mounds, shaping the terrain to funnel animals into predictable paths. Some even dug shallow trenches, channels that confused scent and wind direction, buying precious seconds in a confrontation. The same snow that threatened to bury them became their ally. Imagine it. The storm raging, dogs barking, a father steadying his bow while children huddle close to the fire. Every shadow outside could be life or death. Yet they didn't panic, they prepared. Their courage wasn't loud, it was quiet and constant, because in that world, love meant more than warmth. It meant vigilance, the will to protect each other, no matter what waited in the dark. For the native families, surviving winter wasn't just about clever tricks or physical endurance, it was about understanding. They didn't see the snow as an enemy to fight, or the storm as something to curse. They saw it as a teacher. Nature wasn't an obstacle to overcome. It was a partner to learn from. Every cloud, every gust of wind, every shift in animal behavior carried information, and they listened. They watched the direction of the smoke, the shape of the clouds, the way birds flew low before a storm. Without any weather app or thermometer, they became their own living forecast, guided by memory and instinct, passed down through generations. That knowledge wasn't written in books, it lived in people. It flowed from elder to child beside the firelight, through stories, songs, and quiet instruction. A grandfather teaching a boy how to read the wind, a mother showing her daughter where to find dry wood even in a blizzard. These lessons weren't survival tips, they were life philosophies. They taught respect for the land that gave shelter, for the animals that gave warmth, for the seasons that shaped existence itself. When storms came, they didn't panic, they adapted. If the wind shifted, they moved the camp. If snow piled high, they tightened the hides. That flexibility, that harmony with the natural rhythm, was what kept them alive. It was a mindset that valued balance over control, wisdom over comfort. And maybe that's the greatest inheritance they left behind, The reminder that survival is not about conquering the world, but remembering we belong to it. The land doesn't yield to us, it speaks to us. And those who learn to listen, like the families who once slept through howling winters, find warmth in every season. As the storm finally broke and the wind quieted, morning light would spill across the frozen plains. Inside the teepee, embers still glowed, smoke drifted gently through the flaps, and a family began to stir alive, warm and safe. Their survival wasn't luck. It was proof that knowledge, passed through generations, could be stronger than any storm. They didn't need electricity or walls of steel. They had something far more powerful: understanding. Those 7 lessons: the land, the shelter, the fire, the floor, the warmth, the protection, and the respect, weren't just techniques. They were wisdom, woven into a way of life. A reminder that the line between comfort and struggle, between life and loss, is drawn not by the tools we own, but by the awareness we carry. Today, we live surrounded by technology, convenience, and noise. Yet somehow, we've forgotten how to listen to the wind, to the world, to each other. The people who slept through blizzards 600 years ago weren't tougher because they were born that way. They were stronger because they remembered that everything in nature gives and takes in balance. So maybe survival isn't about what we build outside, but what we rebuild inside: our patience, our gratitude, our connection. Because knowledge weighs nothing, but it can save everything. And the next time winter knocks on your door, think of them, the ones who turned the cold into wisdom and left behind the warmth of understanding for us to find again.